Yasodanandana Prajanaranjana Yasodanandana Prajanaranjana Ramunatira Manachari Jamunatira Manachari Jaya Raja Madhava Kunjavi Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavi Hare Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading third canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, fourth chapter, text 33. Viduro api udhavak shrutva krishnasya paramatmana kridaya pita dehasya karmani slahitanita viduro api udhavak shrutva Krishnasya paramatmanaha kriyayo bhata dehasya karmani slagitani cha viduro api udhavat kritva Krishnasya paramatmanaha kridyayo pata dehasya karmani slagitani cha viduro api udhavat kritva Krishnasya paramatmanaha kriyadoya patate hasya karmani slakitani cha Yogirvachutva Krishnasya paramatmanaha Krishnasya paramatmanaha Kriyo patadehasya Kriyoya patadehasya Karmani slagitani cha
Viduro pyudhavashrutva
Viduro api urdhvakritva
Krishnasya paramatmanaha
Krishnasya paramatmanaha
Dayo patadehasya
Kriyoya patadehasya
Karmani shlagitani cha
Karmani slagitani cha
Viduro pyudhavashrutva
Viduro api urdhvakritva
Krishnasya paramatmanaha
Krishnasya paramatmanaha
Patadehasya
Kriyoya patadehasya
Anishlagitani cha
Karmani slagitani cha
Viduro Purvachutva
Viduro api udvakshitva
Krishnasya Paramatmanaha
Krishna sha paramatmanaha
Vidayo Patadehasya
Vijoya pata dehasya
Karmani Slagitani Cha
Karmani slagitani cha
Dero Pudavachrutva
Viduro api udvakshitva
Krishnasya Paramatmanaha
Krishna sha paramatmanaha
Hridayo Patadehasya
Vijoya pata dehasya
Shlagitani Cha
Karmani slagitani cha
Viduropi Udva Chrutva
Viduro api udvakshitva
Krishnasya Paramatmanaha
Krishna sha paramatmanaha
Hridayo Pattadehasya
Kridoya pata dehasya
Karmani Slaghitani Cha
Karmani slagitani cha
Viduropi Udva Chrutva
Viduro api udvakshitva
Krishnasya Paramatmanaha
Krishna sha paramatmanaha
Dev Pattadehasya
Kriyayo pata dehasya
Karmani Slaghitani Cha
Karmani slagitani cha
Vidorpi Udavachrutva
Viduro api udvakshitva
Krishnasya Paramatmanaha
Krishna sha paramatmanaha
Kridayopata Dehasya
Kridoya pata dehasya
Karmani Slahitani Cha
Karmani slagitani cha. Oh, word by word synonyms. Vidura, Vidura, Api, also, Udhavat, from the source of Udava. Shrutva, having heard. Krishnasya, of Lord Krishna. Parama Atmanaha, of the Super Soul. Kridaya, for the sake of pastimes in the mortal world. Upata, extraordinarily accepted. Dehasya, of the body. Karmani, transcendental activities. Slagitani, most glorious. Cha, also. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Vidura also heard from Uddhava about the appearance and disappearance of Lord Krishna, the super soul in the mortal world, who is subject matter sought after with great perseverance by the great sages. The subject matter of the appearance and disappearance of the super soul, Lord Sri Krishna, is a mystery even for the great sages. The word paramatmanaha is significant in this verse. An ordinary living being is generally called the Atma, but Lord Krishna is never an ordinary living being because he is Param Atma, the super soul. Yet his appearance as one of the human beings and his disappearance again from the mortal world are subject matters for the research workers who execute research work with great perseverance. Such subject matters are certainly of increasing interest because the researchers have to search out the transcendental abode of the Lord, which he enters after finishing his pastimes in the mortal world. But even the great sages have no information that beyond the material sky is the spiritual sky, where Sri Krishna eternally resides with his associates. Although this, at the same time, he exhibits his pastimes in the mortal world in all the universes, one after another. This fact is confirmed in Brahma Samhita 537. Goloka eva nivasyakilatma bhuto. The Lord, by his inconceivable potency, resides in his eternal abode, Goloka. Yet, at the same time as the Supersoul, he is present everywhere, in both the spiritual and material skies, by his multi-varieties of manifestation. Therefore, his appearance and disappearance are simultaneously going on, and no one can say definitely which of them is the beginning and which is the end. His eternal pastimes have no beginning or end, and one has to learn of them from the pure devotees only and not waste valuable time in so-called research work. So-called research work. So this is the best research work, as Prabhupada stated here in the purport. Not to take the useless information of the research work of the material world. Yeah, I used to work for a market research company, and basically it was like, I know you kind of think we weren't allowed to lead anyone on to any type of question, answers to any questions or anything like that. But people are really generally really vague about things. And they said, "Oh yeah, I liked it. It was good." We had to find out what was good about it. Well, what's good about it, right? But you can't lead them on. But we want to know what sensual perceptions they're talking about. Does it look good? Does it taste good? Does it feel good? What's good about it, right? So we had to get specific. So, yeah, this kind of research work, they're talking about studying the sex life of snails. It's kind of useless, like that, So, so much of the vague material world, but the real researchers are the great sages who are trying to research out the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah, that's the proper place of research. Not in these trivial things in the material world, right? You want to know another really, really funny, strange one was, so somebody was studying for like 30 years what was it? The circulation system of the blade of grass. So he was like a total expert, right? So, that something like that might be useful to someone in the material world for some specific purpose. But yeah, it's not eternal activities. It's useless. What is that? In the Nectar of Instruction, it stated that to over endeavor for mundane things which are difficult to achieve. So instead of becoming self-realized, they spent 30 years studying something completely almost really pretty much useless. So the classes that I was listening to, he was talking about here, Prabhupada, and the verse talking about Krishna's appearance and disappearance that Vidura heard from Uddhava before Uddhava had gone to Bhadyak Ashram, and he advised to hear from Maitreya. He wanted Vidura to hear from Maitreya because Maitreya is senior to Uddhava. And so there's also, I heard it stated, either read it earlier in these purports or they actually stated in classes on these verses. But Uddhava is more an intimate associate or more advanced devotee than even Arjuna, right? And so that's one of the things Radhanath Swami was saying this morning on this verse that I was listening to, is that it's a mystery. Like it's Krishna's transcendental activities, birth and activities, and disappearance and appearance are all like a mystery, even to the demigods, right? So this is certainly a mystery that all of the other associates of the Supreme Lord were ordered to leave, except for Uddhava, right? So Uddhava was carrying a very intimate, urgent message from the teachings of Lord Krishna to teach. This is why he was still here on the planet, and to go to Bhadrak Ashram to engage in devotional service and associate with devotees there, Narayan Rishis. So, and that's the whole idea, is that Maitreya Rishi is superior in age to Uddhava. So that was more appropriate that Vidura would hear from Maitreya. And since Vidura and Maitreya were a little more equal in age than Uddhava was so much more younger. And so then what he's mentioning, what he's speaking here, oh yeah, he used the verses, Janma, Karma, Chamani, Divyam, and he goes, you know what the meaning of Janma, you know what Janma is birth, right? So Krishna is saying this verse, Bhagavad Gita, one who knows my transcendental nature of my appearance and disappearance upon leaving this mortal world does not again take birth. So that's the whole mystery right there. So there was a lot of discussion on with that. Well, that's one thing that he wanted to mention. Okay, who's speaking here is Suta Goswami speaking to Sanaka Rishi and the sages of Namasaranya who met for the second time to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. They wanted to perform some sort of sacrifice. Kali Yuga had already begun, so they think of performing an Agnihotra fire sacrifice to purify the atmosphere of Kali Yuga. And then it was all agreed upon by all the sages to hear Srimad Bhagavatam is the best actual sacrifice for this age of Kali. And so Suta Goswami, he's speaking from what he heard from Sukadeva Goswami. And so Sukadeva Goswami, he's speaking to Maharaj Prishka. So this is just what had just happened. The king had inquired from Sukadeva Goswami just in the previous verses. And Sukadeva Goswami, he's explaining this, that Uddhava had heard from Krishna and Maitreya had arrived and had heard exactly what Uddhava had heard from Krishna. So Maitreya was a qualified speaker to speak to Vidura. And Uddhava had explained Krishna's appearance and his pastimes and his disappearance, his Mola Lila. So there's a lot of discussion on Mola Lila. So this is what he's talking about, is that the Srimad Bhagavatam that they're discussing here, Krishna's pastimes, they're described in third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The Mola Lila is described of Krishna's leaving this mortal world. And then not until the 10th canto, Krishna's birth and activities are described, right? So it says that's certainly a mystery, right? And so then, let's see, what was, there was speaking so much of the history of Srimad Bhagavatam before the age of Kali had commenced, because right now at this point, we're in the age of Kali. The battlefield of Kurukshetra has already occurred. Yudhisthira has already left the planet. Let's see. So there's so much of the history, how when Krishna left the planet, that's when Kali Yuga had begun. So what we're hearing is the history or the background of Srimad Bhagavatam as the Srimad Bhagavatam begins, and we progress, and we still keep going into the hearing about the transcendental topics and subject matter of the teachings and the pastimes of the various incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So let's see, what are some of the other things that we mentioned? Does anybody have anything to say, subject of discussion or anything, while I kind of remember what else I want to talk about? Oh yeah, that Krishna is the super soul of all living beings. So that's certainly a mystery also. So we are Atma, so we're Jiva Atma, right? And then Krishna, he is Param Atma, superior Atma, or super soul within the heart of every living entity and within the atoms. And what Prabhupada said in the purport here, even within the material and spiritual worlds. So, we're not the material body, but we're the spiritual soul. So that's that's what they were saying. That's the first instruction of Krishna to Arjuna in the very beginning, is to stress this point, what we actually really are. We're not the material body, we're not the mind, but we're the spiritual soul. That's one of the things that in the Kali Yuga and the current time, they've got, people are pretty much confused that they don't know who they are. If they're actually really spiritual, they're identifying themselves with the material body and the name and their social security number that they have in this lifetime, right? Or the type of occupation that they do and the kind of clothes that they wear, the uniform that goes along with it. So they identify with that, with that uniform, a soldier or a policeman, or however they're dressed for the work, the scientist, the doctor, they put on a smock, the scientists, the professors, in universities. So, the well tailored suits and shirts and ties, the courts, so they identify, they're identified with with what they do, with their clothes, their uniform, the clothes that they wear, the material body. But it's what Maharaj had mentioned this too. Oh, and I heard this so many different times. Maharaj said, "What if somebody came up to you and yelled at your coat?" You go, "Man, that's crazy." Right? I mean, really let it all out on your coat. So they're saying, okay, somebody's in the water, he's drowning. And someone comes along and says, I'll save him, I'll save him. And he jumps in and he grabs his shirt and coat. I saved him, but the man drowned. So that's really pretty ridiculous. So that's the what's taking place in the material world, guiding civilization. Well, it's a misdirected, unfortunate, unlucky, right? A misguided, unfortunate civilization being guided and directed directly into hellish conditions. Hellish conditions and lower species of life in the next lives. And so until, again, a very rare opportunity to again receive a human birth. So, yeah.
I wanted to make a comment. Is it okay, Kevin?
Sure.
So this morning I had to move the car for something, and there's Krishna book in there, and we're speaking about how Krishna and Balaram were at the house of the spiritual master, and how pardon me, it was actually the part where it describes the autumn season.
Oh, the autumn. Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah. Have you ever seen the Light of the Bhagavat, where Prabhupada had some artists in Japan illustrate these topics? Yeah.
That's a good one. So Prabhupada was saying that in general, in human society, their students, they rise early in the morning. And he made the point that generally students don't rise early without being called for, And so that there would be like a bell or some sort of chime in the temple, something to wake them up. And on the order of the spiritual master, they will come. And after doing their duties to cleanse the body and so forth, then they'll sit for hearing the scripture. And Prabhupada said something really cool, which I liked, which was that only when there's a pure devotee, everyone is sleeping, only when there's a pure devotee to call the conditioned souls to wake up, do they actually take to hearing from the scriptures. And I just thought about how that was connected with this verse because, everybody's trying to find out how to be happy. Who is God? What is this? And actually, when you sit to do your japa, you'll realize, not yourself, but someone like me, I'm still a speculator. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to find out how to be happy, how to solve my problems. But I don't have to do that because I can just hear from great souls like Uddhava and the Bhagavatam from Srila Prabhupada's purports and from the devotees, ultimately from Krishna. He gave the solutions. So I was just thinking about how we've been called to rise and study the Vedas, and we can throw away all of our so-called research work to find the absolute truth. we can just be simple and humble and just accept what's given, meditate on that, ask ask direct questions to understand how to personally advance, and just accept it based on the quality of the persons who are presenting the information. Nobody's like Krishna. Krishna's Bhagavad Gita is shining like the sun. So it's like, well, who else do we have to listen to? My mind is filled up with junk.
Yeah, yeah, that's a nice comment. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, sorry to hear that your mind's filled up with junk. I didn't know that. There appeared to be a pure devotee me. But yeah, it also states that the luminaries in the sky are just like so many glowworms. You know, you have so many stars, there's so many vibrant personalities, so many persons of knowledge, researchers, you know, the Bill Gates, the Steve Jobs, who else? The richest men in the world, right? The most influential, the presidents, prime ministers, so-called kings, you know, just simply some bubbles that arise from the foam of the ocean and just pop, you know, like that. So, you know, they just come and go and they keep going incessant flow. They just go useless, right? But then, yeah, the Acharya, he's the light of the Bhagavad. He brings the light of the Bhagavad. The students, they rise early and begin chanting the Vedic mantras, hearing from the realized soul, you know, the actual real light of this world, and not the tiny glowworms, you know, the false luminaries in the sky. You know, as compared to, I think compared to the sun and the moon, the actual real luminaries, they all the other luminaries in the sky, they're dwarfed or they're tinted when there's the presence of the sun. There's sunlight. The sunlight takes over. You have day. So yeah, those are real nice verses. Yeah, there's the verses how the material body is a favorable boat, a favorable ship for crossing over the waters of the material world. You know, especially the influence of Kali, and in the Vedic hymns, are the winds, and the Vedas, they're the sails, and a spiritual master, he's the expert helmsman. And so this way, when across the material world, then not only that, but this boat has a transcendental quality. Everyone who has used it to pass over the ocean of the material world, the ocean of material nations, has still left the boat at the shore for anyone else to take it. So it has this transcendental quality to it. So yeah, the Srimad Bhagavatam has a lot of lessons. You know, even like a great demon like Hiranyakashipu, because I was just thinking this recently, and this is what they said about him. He was making comments like as a, you know, Prabhupada says, especially like we were just hearing about the recording of the Happening album in New York, right? And Prabhupada's address. So he says, one becomes more entangled in Maya's complexities. They try to become free from the contamination. You know, they try to become one. You know, but they just become more implicated in Maya's complexities. So it's just as a fly gets caught in the spider's web. So the fly, he tries everything he can do to try to get free, but it becomes more and more entangled, right? So that's pretty much what's taking place in the material world. What is it? Anand, he made a pretty good comment. They're making some really crappy solutions, you know, for their real crappy ideas that cause all these really crappy problems, with more crappy solutions. So that's really the situation. The Band-Aid, the Band-Aid fix, just try to, put some tape over, try to plug it up, give it a patch, put some sort of patchwork, and then it needs another patchwork. It got another leak, something else went wrong. Well, with that solution, nothing's perfect. So I got to figure out another solution for that problem that one just created. So that's actually what's going on in the material world. He was also saying how in the material world, none of us actually really know each other, really, especially not on a spiritual basis. We're on the bodily material platform. So he was saying it was just like so many persons who are coming and going. That's compared to persons who all come to a diner. So they may come to the diners to stay for some time and to have a meal. And then they all leave and they all go in their different directions, their different destinations. Their origin is all different and their destinations are all different. But at some particular point here, they've met at this one confluence at the diner, but they haven't even really met each other. They've only just had the meal there, right? And then they've all going in their different directions. So he was saying this is just like, you've probably seen the river, you see the currents, the water currents, and you see a couple sticks, and sticks are coming down the river, and then all of a sudden they stick together, and they go down the currents and then they separate again, right? So this is how we come together, man and wife, father, mother and children, grandparents and uncles. This is how we're all coming together and going down the current just for a little while and then again separate, create other types of relationships, temporary relationships that are coming and going. So everything in the material world, it's transient by this nature. Nothing's permanent, nothing's eternal. So that's what's actually against our real nature, because we're eternal. Prabhupada was saying that we have an apartment, you get the apartment for, you get the type of apartment for how much you can pay. And then for how long you can pay, you get to keep the apartment. And then the landlord says, okay, vacate. So you have to vacate. So material nature comes along and says, okay, your life is over. Cruel death, Krishna comes as death. Okay, vacate, you have to go. Right? So but we're eternal. And we're decorating our temporary apartments as if we're going to live there forever. Okay. So just saying these things. So, let's see, are there any other, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, there's a question. Sometimes, though I'm submissively hearing and inquiring, I still don't retain the answer. Rather, I am seemingly kept from realizing the answer. I'm most interested to hear how important our approach is in asking questions and hearing answers, and how much does where we are at spiritually factor into our ability to realize the mercy of the devotee coming in the form of transcendental knowledge?
Oh, that's a pretty good question. Who wrote that?
This is from Bhakta Joseph.
Oh, Dr. Joseph. Oh, okay. So, I was just listening to this and I remembered this book, Perfect Questions and Perfect Answers. Prabhupada was saying like that. We've got questions and we got answers, right? But the actual real perfect questions and answers is to inquire and hear from the pure devotee, right? So the whole world is nothing but questions and answers, it's what's going on? Turn on the news. So many trivial, temporary things. And nowadays, you don't even know if it's actually really real. It's some sort of propaganda or something, just, a complete state of confusion like that. If something doesn't sound right, you maybe research it, You know, a lot of people are go, "Oh, that's ridiculous," and go, "No, it's true. These GMOs are really rotting kids' livers and kidneys out by the time they're the age of 14." And you go, "Oh, that's ridiculous." Yeah. Well, okay, I don't know. People I'm on at Monsanto, they don't eat it. They know what it does to you. Believe that. You know, oh, I don't believe in going to hell. You know, okay, well, you know, no, when it's over, it's over. That's all there is, right? You know, I guess the animals and people, they think, but the world began when they were born. When they're dead, that's it. It's all over. I guess they were calling that existentialism, right? You know, everything else doesn't exist unless you're experiencing it. And it's just, therefore, just not real. Well, maybe it's not worth thinking about. You know, Prabhupada's saying the force of the velocity, the speed of the mind. As soon as we think of someplace, you know, like you think of Mayapur, you know, and in Mayapur they had the doors there of the temple, and they had the where they're selling sweets. You know, there's the elephants that came by in the evening. You know, they got big feet, so you stay out away from the elephants so don't get stepped on. You know, and they were chanting Hare Krishna, you know. Your mind immediately goes there. You immediately see these things. You immediately see Mayapur, you know. You know, there's the Tulsi Push, you know, there's the temple of Tulsi and Vrindavan. You know, there's the water there in the back. Then he said, you know, there's a lot of water back there. There's, you know, it's a spiritual thing. The Ganges comes here. There's no rain. There's no floods. But there's all this water back there, this Ganges water. And they use the Ganges water to fill the ghat right in front of the temple. They have the bathing ghat, the steps and everything right there. You know, so, you know, all these things are certainly a mystery. You know, the only thing that we can explain it is that it's spiritual and transcendental. You know, it's by the Lord's own arrangement. So did that really pretty much address Bhakta Joseph's inquiry? Yeah, okay. You have a question, comment? Or? Yeah.
So that's nice. Prabhupada discusses in the 4th chapter, 34th verse, that when the disciple is very sincere to understand the subject matter, and he shows that sincerity by the willingness to do service, then and the person he's inquiring from, or the spiritual master, the devotee, is properly qualified, then the transference of knowledge is automatic, meaning that the Lord from within the student's heart is illuminated. The Lord illuminates that knowledge because of the sincerity of the disciple and the purity of the spiritual master. The quality of the questions that we should ask, Prabhupada discusses that it shouldn't be absurd. So sometimes, even within the Vedic paradigm, a student, depending on his advancement, he can ask an absurd question to the spiritual master. Like, he can try to understand a topic which doesn't pertain to his stage of devotional service. So it's always beneficial to kind of ask questions which are honest to where we are at. If I'm still dealing with lust and greed and, you know, bodily misidentification, then the intimate and intricate details of time and space and relationships with Krishna and the devotees and so many mysteries which are hardly understood, you know, by any devotee, or at least the devotees, they say that you may say you know Krishna, but as far as I'm concerned, I don't know Krishna. That's what Lord Brahma says. So anyway, so if we ask questions which are above our level of advancement, then there's a little bit of absurdity there, because there's an assumption that knowing that information will actually help me be more enthusiastic about my service at hand. So the topics and the questions that we should ask should be on the point that we're discussing. Prabhupada, many times he talked about that, how he wanted the questions in the class to be on the topic, like your question, which is a good question.
Yeah.
So even if it's spiritual topics, it can still be, it can still show the professor or the spiritual master that we're not super serious to actually make advancement, because we're not trying to get down to business and purify my misconceptions where I'm at. You know? So hopefully that helped a little bit.
Yeah, that was nice. Yeah, I heard something that was really nice. You know, I was like, you know, total big, giant, serious, impersonalist Mayavad with no rules or regulations, right? And Rameswara was giving classes on Bhagavad Gita, and he was saying how, you know, well, we're not a material body, and these are not our thoughts, and these are not our desires, and, you know, and I was just like, you know, I thought maybe to elaborate a little bit more on that, you know, because that was right down my alley. You know, that's just exactly where I'm always sucking myself up into. No desires, you know, no thinking, no thoughts. Those aren't mine. I'm not a material body. I'm completely something else from that, you know. So, but I've heard it many, many times, though. I heard it many, many times, though, that they're actually really, Prabhupada was saying, ask questions that's pertinent to the subject matter that we're discussing. You know, I've heard him say that like a lot of times in classes. You know, he gave like corrections to things. You know, I heard Jamil chanted Narayan 3 times. Prabhupada said, "Did I say that 3 times?" He said, "No, it doesn't say he chanted Narayan 3 times." You know, you hear the verses. You know, it sounds. You know, they took that, they corrected it. Prabhupada made the correction, but Prabhupada would make a lot of corrections. You know, but yeah, keep the inquiries should be about the subject matter that we're discussing. You know, especially like, you know, there can be another forum for other kinds of, you know, but yeah, not absurd inquiries, but, you know, if you have like some other questions or something that's a little more of on a, you know, an individual personal basis, you know, then, you know, and it's not pertinent to the class, and, you know, Srimad Bhagavatam class, Bhagavad Gita class isn't the proper forum for that. You know, there's another way to submit that inquiry. You know, but yeah, submissive service and inquiry. And yeah, that reminded me of that verse again. Tesham Sata Yuksanam Bratata Pretty Purvikam Dami Buddhi Ongatam Yena Mamu Piantate. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which to come to me. You know, like that, yeah, from within the heart. You know, Krishna says, I with a shining sword of knowledge and a shining lamp of knowledge destroy all the darkness and ignorance, you know, from within the heart of the serious devotee, you know, the sincere devotee. Yeah, so any other question, comments? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we had a question.
You mentioned the analogy of like a boat and then someone who goes into the water and but the boat is left behind. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. The material body is the favorable boat for crossing over the ocean of the material miseries, ocean of the material world, right? And the Vedic hymns are the sails, and the Vedas are the sails. The Vedic hymns and chanting the Vedic mantras are the favorable winds, right, to blow the sail in the boat. And the expert helmsman, the director, is our spiritual master, right? So this is the perfect example for being able to cross over the ocean of material miseries, right? And then what this boat, you know, we're talking about, it's figurative, right? It's an analogy, but like it's the material body's the boat, the Vedas are the sails, the favorable winds are our mantras, you know, and the spiritual master, the expert helmsman. But yet this boat is always there at the shore for anyone who wants to accept it and cross ocean, over the ocean of material miseries. Well, that's kind of like the beauty of this whole thing. Yeah, it's a mystery. Yeah, yes, it's like a beauty parable. Yeah, there's something, you know, Krishna consciousness is kind of charming. You know, like Sat Chit Ananda. We are composed of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Isn't that pretty far out? It's really pretty charming. You know, Krishna, he's like more beautiful than hundreds of cupids. That's what Brahma says in Brahma Samhita. We need hundreds of thousands of cupids, common devas, like that. So the seeing the beauty of Krishna is like seeing a festival. Okay, so you ready for devotional service? Haribol. Okay, does that answer your question? Okay, Joy. Srimad Bhagavatam class key Joy.